get so emotional because I feel like shooting the show, it taught me.
I thought the fish part flopped.
If you've been a fan of Star Trek for a while, you probably already know that the franchise has weathered changes in the creative team, cast, and even whole generations. But what you're going to hear isn't just another normal quarrel behind the scenes. If the stories are true, this one gets directly to the heart of what happens when tradition, expectation, and modern creative direction clash. Make sure you're subscribed and stay to the finish, since the last part of this story will reveal why this incident could change the future of Star Trek. Years later, something is coming to light that hasn't been talked about in depth previously. Several sources in the business say that there was a private meeting that brought together senior characters from all around the Star Trek timeline and members of the fresher Starfleet Academy cast, including Karis Brooks. What was supposed to be a unifying talk turned out to be one of the most heated arguments in the franchise in decades. There was no dispute about this. It wasn't a press conference or a panel. It was called a closed-door meeting, since it was meant to bring together people from different generations who work in the franchise. But people who know what's going on say that the tone changed practically right away. William Shatner, a person who has been connected to Star Trek since its beginning, is claimed to have started the gathering. Reports say that even though he was quite old, he was actively involved in organizing the conversation. According to many who know him, his goal was clear: to talk about what he and others saw as a growing gap between what Star Trek used to be about and what newer shows were showing. He was not by himself. Several reports say that there are a number of veteran actors from different eras of the franchise, including people from The Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, Voyager, and even some newer entries. Different accounts give different names, but most people agree that there were between 8 and 10 experienced people there. Karis Brooks, a few main cast members from Starfleet Academy, and people who worked on the show sat across from them. The idea of the meeting was to bring people together. That's how it was first brought up, but those stories say that framing didn't last. According to reports, Shatner started with comments that set the tone right away. He didn't ease into the conversation. Instead, he went directly to what he thought was the main point: the state of the franchise. Sources say the message was clear. This wasn't about diplomacy. It was about worry over decline and what needed to change in the future. That opening allegedly surprised the newer cast members. What they thought would be a constructive conversation rapidly turned into something far more direct. After that, one of the older performers, who is said to be linked to Star Trek: The Next Generation, took a more analytical approach. Witnesses say that this part was all about craft. There were supposed to be particular instances of writing structure, character development, and narrative coherence. At this point, the criticism was still technical. But the talk didn't stop there. Another seasoned voice is said to have changed the focus to artistic priorities. Sources say that the disagreement was about whether message had taken over storytelling. The worry that was brought up wasn't about the concepts themselves, but rather how they were being carried out, namely whether characters and stories were being created around ideas instead of growing naturally. At that point, the cast of the Starfleet Academy started to respond. One defense that was said to have been given was that Star Trek has always dealt with social and political issues. That allegation is true in history. The series has employed Allegory to talk about real-world problems for a long time. But this is where the gap became evident. A veteran who worked on Star Trek, Deep Space Nine, apparently pushed back, saying that there is a difference between conveying a tale through allegory and telling it straight. Reports say that the argument stressed that prior shows used fictional settings to represent real-world ideas, instead of just saying them outright. That difference became a main point of contention. According to several accounts, Karis Brooks became more and more upset as the conversation went on. She is said to have said that modern audiences want more direct depiction and that emerging ways of telling stories match those wants. She also said that the response to the show was more about how people felt about it than how good it was. At this point, witnesses say that Shatner got back into the conversation with a statement that was strong and uncompromising. According to these stories, he believed that how well a product is received by an audience is a reflection of the product itself, and that success or failure can't be blamed on outside circumstances alone. What happened next changed the course of the meeting. People who were there said that the conversation went from criticism to confrontation. Karis Brooks is said to have told members of the veteran group that they were reluctant to change and, more significantly, that their criticism was biased. That accusation made things worse right away. Several sources say that the atmosphere got tense and that several people reacted strongly. The veterans allegedly flatly denied the charge, pointing to their own history in a brand that has always included diverse casting and concepts that were ahead of their time. One response pointed out that early Star Trek shows took big risks by showing diversity when it wasn't as popular on TV. The idea was that criticism of implementation should not be confused with resistance to representation itself. The conversation fell apart at this point. Reports say that voices were raised, many people talked over each other, and any ordered conversation came to a stop. What started out as a scheduled discussion of different points of view had morphed into a fight with no obvious way to move forward. People who tried to take back control of the discourse said they were unsuccessful. The meeting ended with the seasoned group leaving. At least one source says that Brooks was told that her role in the present path of the franchise will be recognized as something that would determine how she is remembered. What happened next moved the situation from being talked about in private to having public consequences. After the meeting, Karis Brooks is said to have gone on social media and posted a number of tweets attacking the studio, the audience, and the reasons for the show's cancellation. Insiders say that those posts were published soon after the fight and showed how intense things were at the time. People in the studio, which was named as Paramount, apparently reacted right away. Now, executives had to cope with both internal strife and public pronouncements that made things worse. Some reports say that the decision to terminate connections with Brooks was taken in a short amount of time, maybe 24 hours. The official reason given was worries about professional behavior, especially when it came to public statements and actions related to the problem. If you're still here halfway through the story, this is where it gets important. What happened next isn't just about one actor or one meeting. It shows a trend that has been growing for years. Reports say that the veteran actors who were participating were told what happened. Some people agreed with the decision, seeing it as an essential measure to keep professional standards high. Some people, on the other hand, had mixed sentiments. They agreed that the outcome may have been justified, but they also thought that the confrontation itself may have made things worse. Sources close to Shatner said he stood by the way the meeting went. As he put it, upfront honesty was important, and avoiding hard conversations would only let deeper problems continue. Reports say that other cast members who were in the meeting chose not to talk about the incident in public. Reports say that a lot of people were worried about how this might affect their careers and chose to stay away from the situation completely. As more people learned about the details, reactions were very different. Some fans saw the fight as proof that their worries about the direction of recent Star Trek programming were correct. Some people saw it as a sign of conflict between generations, with established characters fighting against new creative ideas. On the other side, people who work in the industry were more interested in how strange the whole affair was. It's not common for older stars in Hollywood to directly criticize new movies like this. Most of the time, disagreements are indirect, like when people talk about them in interviews or don't talk about them at all. The fact that this meeting is said to have happened at all shows that there is more going on than just normal creative disputes. That leads us to the wider picture. This wasn't just a fight about one show. It showed that there is a bigger difference in how different generations narrate stories. One side has a point of view that has been developed by decades of traditional story structure and indirect investigation of themes. On the other hand, a more modern style that puts a higher value on immediacy and direct involvement with current problems. According to the reports, neither party completely grasped what the other wanted heading into the meeting. That mismatch has a lot to do with how rapidly things became worse. In the end, we still don't know what the long-term effects will be. This moment has already become part of the larger discourse about Star Trek's future. Whether every detail is completely correct or not, it shows a moment where it was hard to ignore the conflict within. And for Karis Brooks, the effects were instantaneous and life-changing. According to what insiders say, the meeting didn't simply show that there was tension, it also led to decisions and actions that made it impossible to move forward. the effects on the franchise itself are still becoming clear. Star Trek has always changed. It has changed over time, for different audiences, and with varied creative ideas. But times like this make you ask a clear question. What parts of yourself do you need to keep, and what may alter without losing who you are? That's the question that Paramount and everyone else involved in planning the following steps must answer. And this is where I want to hear from you. Should long-running series like Star Trek change quickly to keep up with new trends? Or should they stick to the storytelling rules that made them famous in the first place? Please leave your opinions in the comments. You already know this isn't just about one meeting if you've made it this far. It's about the whole franchise's future. If you want more breakdowns like this one, subscribe. I'll see you in the next one.